Hi, guys. Welcome back to Wynter Tai Chats. Before we get into it, I have to ask you to do me a favor by hitting that subscribe button and hitting the like button. So let's go ahead and get into it. Today's chat is with a former university professor with degrees in economics and business administration. Well versed in education and psychology, he has literally coached present day leaders, and his traditional martial arts background includes black belts in both traditional shudokan karate and Okinawan Shorin-ryu karate. He is also an author of The Analysis of Genuine Karate, Volumes 1 and 2. Please welcome Sensei Hermann Bayer. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on, Mark. Appreciate to be on the show.
Well, thank you very much for agreeing to be here, sir. Any day that someone can educate me on something I'm not versed with, it's a day that I am smiling from ear to ear. Thank you very much, sir. So, let's go ahead and get into the interview. Herman, sorry about that. I'm muddling my words already. So, first question for you. How did you get into the martial arts, sir?
Well, it was a long time ago. Today I'm 75 years old, and I started way back in 1980 with a rather profound reason, because one of my friends was severely attacked and barely survived a vicious criminal attack. And I simply said to my wife, we were both young at that time, we have to do something for becoming better in self-defense. So I didn't know anything at that time. So I went to the karate style available in my hometown, which was Doshinkan karate, which is the successor of shudokan karate you mentioned a minute ago. We started training in, as I mentioned, 1980, and I soon figured out that martial art is way more than self-defense. It develops the entire personality. It becomes a way of life, and it goes beyond what I was initially looking for. Having said that, in this traditional karate system, we did not do sparring or fighting, because the founder followed the thought that is for children. Karate is serious. You don't use it to play around. So during training, there was no fighting. We did partner exercises. Okay, now, I did that for about a dozen years, and then life kicked in, career kicked in. I was on the road a lot. I interrupted training with the exception of self-training. You can do it by yourself, of course, which I did for several years. And during that time, I immigrated to the United States, developed my career here, and restarted with karate in 2016, full-time now. And I switched from the Japanese Karate-Do system, Shudokan, to Shorin-ryu, which is more, most of your viewers will be more familiar with that one. And the school I went to here is a traditional school, and Shorin-ryu is a hard style, and we trained fighting.
Excuse me.
So, and now here came the hard part for me. I couldn't succeed in any fight with what I learned earlier in my life. So everybody familiar with this Okinawan hard style had easy go on me, and I realized that that what I initially wanted to learn, basically self-defense, I did not learn, and I relearned. So as soon as I realized that, I said, let's restart. I restarted from scratch with the white belt and worked my way up in Shorin-ryu. So this actually opens the door to the different views and the different philosophies between those karate systems. I'm sure we'll touch on that later during our discussion. But to sum up the answer to your question, I started trying to learn protecting myself, realized there's more to it, realized that in some way modern karate training does not prepare you for self-defense. Restarted in another system. Some call it style. I prefer the term system for certain reasons. And at the end of the day, learned what I intended to do, and I'm now in the position to see the difference. And in my humble opinion, I'm able to talk about this difference and to point it out.
All right. So, from what you just said, I was the second question, of course, is going straight into as you said, most of my readers, most of my subscribers, most of my listeners will be more familiar with Shorin-ryu or
Right.
that name, but shudokan not so much, which was about to be my excuse me, which was about to be my second question. What is shudokan? Because I gather that it's more modern style of karate. Is that correct?
Yeah. On a first approach, yes. On a second one, question mark. Let me explain, if I may.
Okay.
The creator of Shudokan, or the sensei who came up with that name, is Kanken Toyama. Kanken Toyama, an Okinawan karate sensei who studied. Let me rephrase. When we talk about Shorin-ryu, there's a certain lineage, right? It's Matsumuro, Itosu, Shibana, Nakasato. That's the line I was following. Itosu, Anko Itosu, how is called by many, was the teacher of many famous karate sensei, and Kanken Toyama is one of them. So he learned as well from Yagona, who is the creator of the Gochu Ryu style, which you know, of course. And when he was deployed as a school teacher to Formosa, today Taiwan, he had the opportunity to study Chinese martial arts as well. In 1930, he went to Tokyo. And in Tokyo, he opened a training hall. And Shudokan, translated, means simply the hall to study the way. And Toyama sensei said, a name is just a name. There are no styles in karate. Whatever the name might be, they all are based on the same fundamentals. And there is no specific style, like there is no specific style in sumo wrestling or in boxing. The entire style and splitting up the style discussion, splitting up the art into different styles comes from Japan. It's not Okinawan. I'll go into that a little bit later, if I may, just to continue that first line of thought. So in his shudokan, Toyama taught a unified art, fighting art, combining all karate approaches and integrating Chinese approaches. Some call that a style, some don't, right? It's the traditional, the classic Okinawan karate circles don't believe in style. They believe in educating individuals into masters, if I may say, of defense and offense. And so whatever you call it, it's all based on the same fundamentals. I often use the example of a language to explain that. Every language is complete as it is. No language needs additional grammar added by individual speakers. You can use a language as it is to perfectly express the same thing in different languages. Karate, the same thing. A karate style is like a language. You express, you articulate the same thing, but in different approaches. But it's all based on linguistic fundamentals. And the unifying fundamental of all karate is, Okinawan karate, is self-protection. Self-protection in the Okinawan sense is more than just self-defense. It is protecting oneself against everything from the inside out. It starts with what you eat, what kind of drink you take, what kind of food you eat, how you think, how you build up relations to others. Basically, avoid everything that would damage yourself. That is the Okinawan principle of self-protection. And within this principle of self-protection, of course, fighting art, as in terms of self-defense in the narrower sense, is an important part. Now, history kicks in, because when mainland Japan discovered this local art of self-protection, Okinawan karate, they liked it very much, because it was in a time when they needed strong bodies, they needed devotion, commitment. They wanted to build up warrior spirit, because before World War II, they were planning and actually started to occupy most of Southeast Asia, and they did evil things during that time. And karate, as well as other arts like Jiu-Jitsu, Aikido, Kenu, fencing, were used to build up this, to spiritually mobilize the population, let me put it that way. And for that purpose, they changed what they took from Okinawa, actually pilfered, in the 1920s, 30s. Before that time, karate was unknown on the mainland. They didn't know it. They didn't know anything about it. The traditional samurai didn't use karate to defend themselves empty-handed. They used jiu-jitsu. And Japanese, during this historical period, Japanese officials turned these fighting arts, jitsu, into the art of character building up warrior spirit. Udo. So Jitsu became Do, the way. It's a little bit related to Tao, but in a very limited way. And the entire character and the spirit of these arts changed. Let's say warriors became artists, martial arts became fine arts, karate jitsu, like Shorin Ryu, became karate do, like shudokan. Combat fencing, kenjitsu, became kendo. So the purpose of this art changed from being able to succeed in combat to become a better person, basically. Turned into a way of life. Okay? Now, let's loop that entire thing back to Shudokan, where we came from. Toyama Sensei took all these approaches together and taught one unified art, so to speak. That way he preserved Okinawan tradition, but he broke with Okinawan tradition because he changed exactly this Jitsu mindset and philosophy into Do, into the way of life. In the Jitsu, combat skills, martial skills were prioritized, and self-development was in there, of course, too, but it was not the priority. It came with that, but the priority was the fighting. In the Do, karate Do approaches, self-development, self-expression, self-articulation, way of life, character building is the priority, and fighting capabilities is not as important. It's in there, but it's not the priority. I'm in the lucky position, in the blessed position. One thought before that, I see those two approaches linked together like yin yang. They are not completely separated. Right? Yin yang, the symbol shows that there is always some yin in yang shown in the little spot in the paisley, and there's always some yang in yin. Karate Jitsu Do is the same thought, in my opinion. Karate Jitsu is the craft. It is the martial skill. It was the professional craft for security personnel. It was called T at that time. Then it became the professional craft of self-defense, karate. Karate Do, on the other hand, is the Japanese way to approach things. It's not prioritizing the fighting approach, it's prioritizing the form it's put in. Yeah. Okinawan karate, the first priority is to survive. So you react to whatever your opponent is throwing at you. You have to be completely open-minded, empty-minded, and whatever your opponent throws at you, you have to deal with. So as a defender, you are always behind the curve because only your attacker knows what he wants to do and when he wants to do it. And you react to what he gives you. In Japanese karate, it's the other way around. Japanese karate, the form is prioritized over the outcome. Kata is the main approach in Japanese karate. And this basically highlights the main difference between the two philosophies of Jitsu and Do. Okinawan approach, Japanese approach. Jitsu and Do, I see the same thing. Jitsu is the craft of fighting. It was initially, I think that I said that shortly before we were interrupted. Jitsu, Karate Jitsu is the fighting craft of security personnel and later for civilian self-defense. Do is the art of perfecting a form. In Japan, the Do and the form is priority. Take the tea ceremony, for example. You have, there's a specific form. Yeah, there are rules and exact regulations how to prepare the tea, how to hold your cup, how to drink the tea, how to put down the cup, how to put your hands, how to sit, and so on and so forth. Everything is crystallized in a specific form, and maintaining the form is the priority. In Okinawa, the form is not the priority, the tea is the priority. Okinawans don't give too much how to get a good tasting tea. To have a good tasting tea is important, and how to get there they don't care about. You see that different in the mindset. And in fighting, it means that in Okinawan karate, you deal with everything your opponent throws at you. I mentioned that, right? You have to be open-minded. You don't know what's coming because only the attacker knows what he will do. You are, as a defender, always behind the curve and have to react to what's coming. In Japanese Karate Do, you know what's coming. It's scenario-based. It is staged. It all comes in form. You see it coming. It's defined what it's coming. And that is why many people who train modern Japanese karate, which is the mainstream karate, almost everybody does that with a smaller circle who conserve the traditional approach. So the majority of all those folks who train karate are not perfectly or not well enough equipped for real fighting. To come back to your question, is the practical fighting art. Many will be overwhelmed, not in Okinawan karate, but when they train Japanese karate, because the real fight has nothing to do what we can do in a dojo. It comes at you unexpected. It comes at you viciously at oddly close distance with a multitude of blows or stabs if the knives are involved. And that is completely different to what you do in the dojo, where you see what's coming and you have a specific form to react to it. So I'm in the position to have studied and still study both approaches, try to get this unity of fighting craft and the art of development, self-development through training of Jitsu. It is a practical fighting art. I said every Jitsu system is like a language. We talked about that before we got separated, right? So you can use every karate Jitsu system to protect yourself. They are all based on the same fundamentals. The human body has a limited number of possible movements. So it's all this or that or this or that. It's circular or direct. And Within these fundamentals, if you combine them differently, you have thousands of different applications, but it's all the same fundamentals. And so in a protection, self-protection situation, or in a real fight, it's not about my karate is better than your karate, my style is better than your style. It's a question of how quickly do you snap out of your surprise and your freeze. And I use the words we use: give, receive, and give. And receive what the opponent is throwing at you appropriately, and give as fast and as hard and as effective as possible. So it's more a psychological question than a technical question. That is my answer to, is it a practical fighting art, and what is shudokan?
Okay, so moving on to that third question for you, sir, Hermann. What is, in your opinion, the hardest part of developing karate to a high level?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. That's an excellent question, actually. Karate developed in a culture which is 100% different to our Western culture. So the mindsets you younger generations are born and raised is based on individuality, basically. Individuality is important, express yourself is important, critical thinking is important, and so on and so forth. Asian, Japanese culture is different. It's a culture of conformity, you might put it there. So the individual is important, but not as important as the community, which could be a family, the group, the village you live in, the nation. That means that because karate training is based on Japanese teaching methods, it is based on that culture, right? And these Japanese teaching methods and this culture, for example, demand from a student to follow orders, to do what the sensei says without questioning. That is 100% contrasting what the students experience in school, in education, at the workplace, where he or she is encouraged to question, to not believe everything, to double check things. So I think that is one way underestimated thing in karate, because these high-level personalities you mention, you talk about, they are free spirits. They are self-confident, autonomous thinkers. You can't go there and say, do this, do that, and since I have a do this first. No. They would leave within a couple of training sessions. So you have to build a bridge, an educational bridge, from a Western mindset to these traditional martial arts values. And that's not an easy thing to do, because, as I mentioned, most dojos don't have a clue about teaching. They taught like they are teaching like they have been taught decades ago in a different culture. I'm speaking of Western sensei here, right? So they were in Okinawa or were stationed in Japan, Okinawa, military personnel, very in many cases, and they learned the traditional way, which was the normal way to learn things in these Asian cultures. And with their military background, it fit quite well what they were expecting, and they wanted to fight, and they loved it, and they came back to the US and opened up their own own schools, and they taught how they were taught. That went well for several decades, but that doesn't work as well today. And we see that these traditional dojos are losing students at an alarming rate. And then came COVID, and the entire country shut down, and karateka had to, if they didn't interrupt the training until the dojo reopened, they trained by themselves using the internet or whatever sources available as best as they could for 2 years, maybe for 3 years. And that created an unrepairable damage, because every practitioner knows how fast you build up rust and how fast idiosyncrasies sneak back in unnoticed. You do something a little bit incorrectly and a little bit more incorrectly, but you don't realize it. You need the feedback of the dojo and of an experienced sensei. So during that time, dojos traditional dojos lost, and then came COVID, and dojos shut down, and many of them didn't reopen after COVID anymore. And those who did are operating now on a lower student body level. And one of the reasons is that they cannot adapt to Western educational methods. Western educational methods were developed to reach Western minds. I'm not pleading to replace these Eastern approaches by Western methods. I'm pleading for adding a Western, a sophisticated, well-proven Western educational approach to the Eastern approaches. Yeah, and the Western approaches, they take into account, for example, that you have different learner personalities. Yeah, you have visual learners, you have auditive learners, you have individual learners, you have communicative learners, you have learners who learn best in groups, you have learners who hated to work in groups, and you need the correct input channel to reach all these personalities equally. That's one thing. Second thing, we need to build, we have Western values and we have Eastern values. Younger Western students, younger, I say 40 and younger, 40 years and younger, so not kids, adults, younger adults. They have no clue anymore what do is, what the way means, the path, or Tao or something like that. They have no idea what it means to in a traditional dojo, what traditional values a sensei wants to bring across. You have to translate these values, perhaps discuss with the student that they can find parallels in their personal life. Yeah, let's say, if you talk about discipline, for example, it has a negative image in the West. So you have to build a bridge from the discipline demanded in the dojo to the Western mindset. That needs some educational background. So we are doing in karate camps, we teach our colleagues, our other sensei about teaching methods, what they could use to build that bridge. That's one challenge. You're worth asking, what's the hardest part of developing karate? That's one. The second, when we go into the higher levels of karate, is ego. It's the most difficult thing, because as soon, in my opinion, it starts It starts actually it's a black belt thing. As soon as there are certain skills people think they know, and they don't always know, and then they figure something out, and they think they figured something out, something new, right? They basically reinvent the wheel, but they would have found the same insight if they would have stayed with that sensei and dove deeper into the system they are studying. But still talking about Western advanced students, now they want to break away from the sensei, and now they think they understand, and they create a new style. And because now economics is kicking in, money is kicking in. Yeah? You mentioned Sensei Tosin Shibana. Shibana said, karate teacher should never live from his teaching alone. That's not the Okinawan way, he said, because if you have to live by solely based on teaching, it's easy to get corrupt, yeah, to loosen requirements, to keep students in the dojo, perhaps, loosen requirements. You know, I don't want to badmouth anybody. So there are many sensei out there who do excellent work and don't fall under this category, but it's in jeopardy. So let me give you an example. Student of ours did good and achieved first Q, second brown belt in my dojo, in our dojo, and thought he thought he knew now. So he went brown belt and opened his own school, and he took in our Shorin Ryu style, we have 3 Naihanshi katas, and we have the Pinan katas next from Itosu. So he took the 3 Naihanshi and the first 2 Pinan and divided the 3 Naihanshi in 2 kata each, and the 2 Pinan kata into 3 kata each, separated it. So he had 3 times 2 is 6. Plus, he had a dozen katas, which he called his style of traditional karate. That is ego. And you see that when you train a long time with somebody, he becomes kind of sensitive to feedback. He doesn't, or she doesn't take critique very well anymore. So in the West, you have to explain why you are doing that, why you are criticizing. You cannot simply assume that they'll accept your critique. Know what I mean? So I think that this you don't have this in Asian countries. So when we go to Okinawa, we train at our Hombo dojo, at our style headquarters. That's never a question. The sensei says something, you do it, everybody does it, whether he's 80 years old or 15, it doesn't matter. And there is a camaraderie, and there's a brotherhood, like a family. You have to build that up in the West. It doesn't come spontaneously. So that I see as the hardest part in terms of personalities and values. The hardest part, specifically here in the US, is that this mindset, the US mindset, is basically a competitive mindset. In the US, you don't want to take long time to build something up. Yeah, you want to achieve something pretty fast. Americans are sprinters, you may call it. Achieve something pretty fast and move on to the next. Building up martial arts skills is a long, decades-long process, actually. And to bring that across and to make that clear is not all. I'm not always successful in that. Then life kicks in, right?